Hey everyone, and welcome to another review of the Tamashii Nations SH Figuarts for their Marvel Cinematic Universe line, as finally Bandai have given us the Iron Man Mark 1, the first ever suit built by Tony Stark inside that cave way back in the first MCU movie, Iron Man 1. And this is part of the Birth of Iron Man series following the remake of the Mark 3 and the most recent Tony Stark figure. And this is a very premium like type of figure in 1/12 scale. Just look at the box, it's a really nice packaging with this shiny type of chrome, and the box size is also a lot bigger than your standard SH Figuarts for their Marvel, so I expect there to be quite a lot of accessories, and maybe because this armor is meant to be a lot chunkier than a lot of his suits as well. So looking at the front, you can see this really nice photo of the armor in silver, and that really matches well with the rest of the colors of the box. The usual stickers, the logos, the titles, and then on the side we have the Mark 1, and then on the other side it's Mark 1 again, but this time you see Tony Stark wearing it inside. And then at the top and the bottom it's the same Iron Man. At the back we have the figure in different poses, and now we can finally unbox the figure and take a look inside. So inside we get the usual instruction manual to show you how to put on the accessories, and here is the figure in its full look inside its packaging. So here is the action figure right out of its packaging, and I'm going to say at first glance this is a pretty good representation of the Mark 1 armor. So let's not forget this is the first ever suit made by Tony Stark with limited resources from that iconic movie Iron Man 1. So I'm going to say this is probably one of his most iconic suits, although you could argue that every suit is probably very iconic depending on the film and the moment. And it's meant to be pretty solid, made out of steel, and I guess they've kind of got that done well. It's an all silver suit, so a lot more challenging for Tamashii Nations to make this, since this is the first time they're making this type of armor. It feels a lot heavier as well than most of the other SH Figuarts from my experience, which I guess that means it's quite accurate as well. Obviously it's not that heavy because it's just an action figure, but yeah, it does feel pretty solid. Looking at the materials, it's a full silver suit. They've got the dents, the damages on it, so I'm guessing Bandai have done their research and this is actually very accurate to the movie. And then at the front you can see the coding as well, and then looking at the legs, very solid. It actually stands really well as well. I know a lot of SH Figuarts you have to really move the legs, but because this leg is so chunky with all this material, you can just place him down and he stands there well. And then looking at the arms as well, you have the launchers on the right hand, and then the shoulder pads, and then this side same thing. It's got the cables, the red colors, and then looking at the back, I'm guessing this is all accurate as well. Damages there, and then we have Stark, and then all this cables as well and wires all the way to the left leg, and all the materials. So yeah, I'm gonna say this is very impressive. It was probably a lot more challenging to make this one than any of the other Iron Man suits, but for this one they had to really plan a new design. I don't think the Mark 1 has that much movement because again it's very limited, but I'm sure there is some articulation, so I'm going to try that now. So for the head sculpt, he goes side to side slightly because there's two of these shoulder pads blocking the way, so you can just turn it side to side and then up and down slightly, so there's no 360 spin. And then for the hands, let's see if we can move the shoulder drop. Yeah, and he stretches up this much. But if I just move the shoulder pads up, he can actually start moving his hands. And then forwards, and then backwards. I'm trying to do this really careful because it just feels a bit fragile, and I don't want to damage it because of all the detail, all the cables inside. So for the joints, it does bend, and I'm going to try it on both hands because they both look very different. So it's not like your standard SH Figuarts where you can just move one hand and the others is just the same. There is rotation, there's a big swivel here. And then for the actual hands inside, you can actually move it, but not much, because of course you get all these materials in between. Same for this side, you get a swivel, and then you get the elbow joints, and inside the hand does have slight movements. And then for the body part now, no movement much, only on the waist, left and right. Doesn't go all the way around, and there's no crunch or upper body either, so very limited. But I guess this is the Mark 1. Legs, kick forwards, backwards not so much because you get this kind of material in the way, but obviously it can rotate if you want. Again, I don't think the Mark 1 really had that much movement. You really just stood there, and maybe a few flight poses will be needed. So yeah, for the legs, they turn, they do bend. Again, very careful, you don't want to break any of the cables inside. So you can see I'm being extra slow in this articulation. And then for the actual bottom half, you can go up and down. It can actually rotate side to side, and then there's no actual movement on the joints for the toes, but you can push it down, downwards, upwards. There's even some movement on this side of the leg. This one actually doesn't open up, it's just moving on the left leg. So you can see very different. You can actually pull this out slightly, but again, I don't want to damage it. So that's the articulation done, and we can now move on to the next part. So here are the accessories included with the Mark 1 armor. It is pretty simple: a pair of flamethrower effects, one set of flight effects for the boots, one stand, one pair of alternate hands, and one set of eyes. So it's not that much considering this is an SH Figuarts Ironman figure. Normally we get a lot more alternate hands, maybe an alternate head sculpt, some repulsor effects, but Tony Stark had limited resources in building the Mark 1, so really the main features were the flight effects for the boots as well as the flamethrowers. And I guess for the alternate head sculpt, we can try out the Tony Stark figure later on. So now we can replace some of the accessories onto the Mark 1. So for the eyes, we removed the front part of the mask, put the eyepiece in, and then put the mask back in. So it now looks like Tony Stark is wearing the Mark 1. And then for the alternate hands, we can actually remove the two pieces on each side of the arm and then place the hand inside. As you can see here, the parts have been removed. And then you can actually place the flamethrower inside the armor piece. So I've done it here for the right hand, and it's the same for the left hand as well. And here are the flamethrowers connected onto the arms. And then for the flight effects for the jet boots, you get these two hard plastics, which do actually feel a lot more heavier than they look. So pretty solid. It's a lot different to your usual Ironman flames for the legs, where you just connect it to the top. These are two big pieces of plastic, and you place it into this stand. So you just connect it on like this. And then to put the armor onto it, you kind of slide the feet backwards, and then you kind of get this connection. And there you have it, the Ironman Mark 1 in the flight poses. And you can see that it doesn't connect that well if you don't get it in the right place. And you can do these flight poses, maybe you can just leave it like this as a display. Really depends what you want. So yeah, this is a pretty unique piece. So now we can do some side-by-side comparisons next to some of the other Marvel SH Figuarts that I own. So we have the latest Birth of Iron Man edition, Tony Stark, the building armor suit. And then we have the Iron Man 3, Tony Stark. And then we can test out some of the latter Iron Man suits. We have the Avengers, Mark 7. And then also the latest original Endgame Mark 85, the latest Avengers Loki, alongside a Hasbro Marvel Legends Captain America from Endgame. Much larger figures, we have the Infinity War Hulk and the Endgame Thanos. Now it's time for my final thoughts on the Mark 1 SH Figuarts. It feels like the line would be incomplete without this iconic armor. So as a collector of the Iron Man Figuarts, I feel this is very much needed in your collection. I really like the way the armor looks, the every fine detail they've done, so it's pretty much accurate to the one we see in the movies. Also really like the accessories, despite it being a little bit limited. So the eyes, I feel that they can be used with or without it, which is very cool. Then we have the flamethrowers, the jet boot effects, the colors, the materials are really solid. And the only thing is probably that they can come loose a bit. For example, for the boots, they are not connected that well. You need to get it in the right place. And then the flamethrowers, sometimes if you don't get it in the right direction, it can weigh down the arm a little bit. But as for the articulation, it is a little bit limited, but not a major problem if it's a Mark 1. I also wish that they had the ability to swap out the whole helmet for a Tony Stark head sculpt. But I feel that this figure is a must, especially now that they have the Tony Stark Birth of Iron Man edition as well. So even though it may be the weakest and simplest of Stark armors, it's certainly very iconic. So my final score is a 8.5 out of 10, as they have sculpted this very well and made what is required of the Mark 1. If you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for more SH Figuarts reviews, news and hunts. Also check out my Tony Stark review if you haven't already, and more SH Figuarts related content on my channel. Thanks for watching and hope to see you soon.